Thanks so much for joining, everyone. My name is Aaron Harrison. I'm one of the analysts at Gartner. I am a native Austinite, so fourth generation actually, so I'm, I guess, a rarity nowadays. So I've been with Gartner for about 4 years, and I just wanted to be able to give back to the DevOps community here and security community as well. So I did get the clearance to actually go and share this with you today. So today we'll talk about how to integrate security into DevOps. I know it's lunchtime, everybody's busy. I will give you this QR code again at the end as well, so if you just want to copy the deck, happy to share that with you as well. So let's talk about the traditional model that we're all accustomed to. Oh, come on. All right, there we go. So this is a very typical waterfall type behavior, right? So you got the business and they write up their requirements and they throw them over the wall to the dev team. And dev team, what do? They throw it over the wall to the test team. And then the test team throws it over to the operations team. I'm an old ops guy in full disclosure, so I can say this in all honesty, right? But where does security go in this model? Right at the end. And security goes, yeah, I don't like that. I'm gonna stop that release. And worse than that, I'm gonna kick it all the way out of here and you gotta start over again. Doesn't really work well. So where does security go in this model? Everybody's seen this model years and years, right? Where does security go here? Security's gotta go everywhere now. Now what are we gonna do? I don't have the staff for that. Who's gonna pay for all that? So I've given you the official Gartner definition of what is DevSecOps, and I've kind of highlighted a few passages, and I even did a ChatGPT. I was the agent for this. Simplified, DevSecOps integrates security into DevOps without reducing the agility or speed of developers. This right here, this is the tricky part. How do we do this, right? And what's this all about? Everybody say it with me, flow. This is what developers want. They want to flow. They want to make sure they're getting their code out to production really fast and easy. So we got to keep this flow up. That's what we're trying to do. Because we asked the developer community. We did a survey last year. This is Gartner's Security and Software Engineering Survey. And we asked, what are your top barriers for achieving good security outcomes? This is the developers responding. 47% said software engineering staff are often asked to deprioritize security tasks for the nature of features instead. Sound familiar? Next, software staff has poor security skills or knowledge. There's not enough security experts in the organization at 35%. Poor collaboration between security and software engineering. The security tool output is too noisy or difficult to understand. Whoops. Poor security of third-party software and APIs. Unclear or hard to interpret security guidelines. Why don't they just follow my rules? Why are they so dumb? Lack of built-in security tools for software. And finally, lack of actual tools and technology. That actually comes very, very far down in the survey compared to a lot of the other stuff. Because everybody's always saying, oh, if I only had a better tool, that would fix it, right? Not according to your developers. So building on these themes, we've actually talked about integrated security. We're going to have 3 different components that make up integrating security into DevOps. First, we'll talk about security coaches and how you can actually extend the reach of security organizations without a lot of overhead. Next, we'll talk about shift left and shift right. Shift left is finding issues before they enter production. Shift right is validating that what we've released is still secure and performant. Finally, we'll talk about tools, but just a little bit. Okay, so first off, anybody play soccer here? Or football? I play. I'm really, really bad at it, but I enjoy it thoroughly. And last week, we actually scored 11 points. We've got the best forward in the league. He out-dribbles, out-shoots everyone. It's wonderful. The only problem? The other team got 20. A little bit of a problem. Okay? So by analogy, here's ops, here's me, right? I'm rewarded for keeping that ball out of the goal. And what do I do to make sure the ball doesn't get in the goal? I just hold that ball. Now, no one will get a goal. You're welcome. Devs, on the other hand, they're out there shooting, they're running, they're trying to score all the goals, right? And they let all the other team just run right past them because they don't want to get tired. Their job is to make goals, not to stop goals, right? Now, what is security doing? Well, security's playing a completely different game than everyone else, but also trying to assist and keep everybody safe at the same time. So we've got a massive cultural mismatch on these. So we actually find that we have two different sets of goals between these groups. The development team is rewarded for more money, more features, give us more. And to do that, they're going to go fast. Well, development and security, operations and security, they're also rewarded for more uptime, more safety, more security. And to do that, we're going to go very slow, be very cautious, right? We want to make sure everybody's safe. We've got a massive disconnect here between our objectives, between these two teams. So you'll hear, change the culture. I just changed the culture, right? You hear that a bunch, right? Well, I got something to tell you. Right? It doesn't have to be just about the culture, because if you really want to change somebody, you change the rewards. You make it rain. When you start changing their budget and start changing what they're going to get their bonus on, you're going to get the behavior that you're looking for. It's not just how many shots you take, it's also how many shots you stop. And we have to get the teams working together, and so the first thing you do is change the reward. So let's look at the reward structure. So here's my three common teams. I've got my development, my ops, my security. And these are all the things that we're supposed to be worrying about. Who's responsible for security? We all are. Who's responsible for compliance? We all are. Who's responsible for making sure that system is up? Well, I'm a developer. I can't be responsible for taking a system operational and making sure that it's up. I'm telling you, I've run many, many incidents where development released some code and brought the system down. You should also be responsible for uptime as well. But on the same token, the security team needs to be held accountable for making sure those developers are getting their code to production on time and in a reasonable fashion. Because if we're not working together, we're going to fail as a team. So we need to make sure that we are aligning our teams on common objectives and common metrics between them. Now, Gartner, famously, we've got our magic quadrants, and that's wonderful. But we also have a second arm of research that's real-life case studies. And this is one of our case studies from Hilton Hotels. At Hilton, they had two teams that were originally against each other. So they had the marketing team. And the marketing team had their common set of metrics. These are very common, nothing new here, right? But then we also have the development team. The development team has their very common set of metrics. Again, nothing new or revolutionary about that. But what they did that was really unique is they said, look, as is, marketing was just throwing those requirements over the wall to the next guy, right? And then what do? They throw them over to me in ops to run for the next decade. Hilton said, no. You win when you win as a team. So 50% of their metrics are actually shared between the teams. And what that does is that causes everyone to play the same game for the same rewards. This automatically breaks down a lot of the organizational challenges that you have within your organization. So we focus on when your customers are successful. That's how you're going to win. And what's beautiful about this model is you can substitute any two parties. You can have security, dev, operations, any two. As long as you're always focused on your end customers, that's how you're going to win. And that's how you're going to make sure that your rewards are structured for that. So security's historical role is one of a rule keeper, right? You must comply with my rules, right? And when that security team breaks out the rule book, everything slows down, right? And so can you imagine you're playing a soccer game, looks something like this, or you're watching a game, right? Guy goes to pass it, and security goes, nope, can't do that. Stop play. All right, well, I'm just gonna, no, stop. That's not allowed either. Well, defense, no, that's wrong too. Pass it. And the players, Can I just play the game? Right? So this is what the developers are frustrated with, right? This is what they're experiencing all the time. So as security agents, we have to quit stopping the play and help them be successful overall. And what's this about? Flow. Flow. Say it with me, kids. All right. So let's start talking about security coaches and how security coaches can make a difference to extend the reach and power of security without a lot of overhead. So what if instead of security being a barrier, what if they can actually just make it easier for everyone and turn on the lights and show them the light of everything? So this is historically what security does, right? I'm up in my security ivory tower. That's the way developers see it. Sorry. And within this, what are we going to do first off? We got to break down that barrier, right? It's not an us versus them. We win as a team, we lose as a team. So because of that, we need to change us, and we need to think about how we are actually playing together. We're part of the organization. We're not outside of it. Now within this, we're going to hire security coaches. Security coaches are passionate people within all of your development community. They're going to extend the reach of security, and they're there to be specialized coaches. So this would be like your goalie coach. You have your midfield coach. All of these specialized coaches within each of these teams. And they're there to help interpret and guide all of the requirements that they're getting from security and contextualize them. They're also going to be listening from the developers and giving the security team feedback as far as what's working, what's not working overall. Because we have to have this be a bi-directional communication to be successful. So 4 quick steps to get a security coaching program involved. First off, we have to recruit. We have to recruit candidates that are interested in security, but don't have a lot of formal knowledge, perhaps. They're great communicators, and they want to actually help the organization be successful. Next, we're going to have to train them. We have to make sure that everyone in the organization has a minimum set of skills they need to be successful as a security coach. Next, we're going to connect with them. We're going to create those dialogue, making sure that everybody is talking to each other, create communities of practice, knowledge sharing between development and security. And then finally, we're going to reward them, right? Make it rain. Think about what we're going to do to make sure that they are rewarded for their efforts, right? We're going to make sure that they have their security outputs and metrics written into their performance plans. We're going to make sure that they're going to conferences like this one, right? We're providing them opportunities for training, all these things to extend their reach. Because a great coach is not on the field, right? But they are helping them reach their full potential and really flourish. And this is where the coach needs to really take this model as well. So great coaches teach the rules, right? You need to know that you can't pick up that ball with your hand, right? When it's a safe place to do that, right? And you don't want to get on the field and interrupt the game to tell them that. I've coached 3-year-olds, I can say this one too. Next, good feedback happens very soon to the moment of coaching is the right way that that's said, right? What does that mean? Has anybody ever been told, hey, that thing you did 2 weeks ago, yeah, that was wrong. What was I doing 2 weeks ago? Right? You want to provide that moment of coaching as quick as you can to the players. The final part is cultivating the self-awareness. This is about reflecting back to the developer that the actions you take matter. How does this make a difference in making our organization more secure? How is that choice that you made causing us grief? We need to tell them and reinforce our message. Great example of teaching the rules. This comes from Baker Hughes. They're an oil and gas services company out of Houston. This is a very simplified deployment lifecycle. And has anybody ever run an ARB or been a member of a CAB or Architecture Review Board? Yeah, so I've run one, and I'm guilty of this. Right? We met every Wednesday morning for teams trying to deploy on Saturday, right here, right before they go live. Now, what do? we'd have our checklist of stuff and we go, that looks dangerous. I don't like that. And what does that mean? Well, I'm going to stop that. That's option one. I could deny the release, suffer the business impact because of that. My second option, I could say go back and fix it. You have 3 days and all the disruption and chaos that creates. Or the third option, the worst one, again, guilty. We see the problem, they see the problem, but we have to roll the dice and do it anyway. I see from the chuckle some of you have played this as well. So what they did at Baker Hughes, they said, look, let's give them our checklist, but way back here at the idea phase. At the idea phase, we tell them, what is the expectation of good? What are the rules you must comply with? And at this point, if they have a negative result, they have a problem with this risk, guess what? I can get engaged proactively to help them fix it, right? If I tell them at the end, oh, by the way, you encrypted that data at rest, right? Ooh, yeah, no. That's going to be really hard to fix. If I told them way back here in the idea phase, relatively easy to solve. And that's what we're trying to do. We want to make sure everyone knows the rules because what are we trying to do? Flow. Keep the flow going. Don't stop the game. Don't stop the devs. All right, next component, shift left and shift right. So shift left is finding all the stuff on the left-hand side before it enters into production. Shift right is going to find all the stuff that enters into production. Now, what I did is I broke this down into two main halves. So on the shift left side, we're going to focus on designing security into the tools and software, right? So we're thinking about how do we write security stories for the developers? How do we integrate into their processes? How do we make it easy to do the right thing with pre-validated code and reference architecture? On the right-hand side, we're going to make sure that we're monitoring the configuration and the threats. And we want to provide these tools have rapid output and feedback to the developers, again, so they can have that moment of coaching, be very close to what they're doing. All right, so now we're going to finally talk about tools. Everybody's favorite thing, right? Just buy me that new tool. The tools should always come later in your processes if you haven't figured it out now, right? Tools supplement the people and the processes. They don't come at the expense of the people. Keep those players on the field, right? You need to think about how you can integrate your tools and processes into the developer's workflow, not the other way around. If you have to pull your players off the field to coach them up in the middle of the game, that's very disruptive, right? We don't want to do that. What are we trying to do? Flow! Keep the game flowing. Okay, so tools are useful for verifying through automation, though. Because again, where does security have to be? It has to be everywhere. So very typically, right, hey, stop implementing your thing, and I need you to go put that into this tool to go check, see if that's secure. Okay, now stop here. I need you to go actually put that code into this other tool and see if that's still okay. And then put in this, oh, nope, I found a problem over here. And all this leads to very frustrated developers. And if you have these manual excerpts where the people are having to exit their workflow to go do something else, spoiler alert, they're not going to do it. Right? You tell me to go stop everything, I don't need to do that. And they're just going to bypass you. Right? So we have to be good providers to the developers and the developer experience to keep this flow going. So from an automation standpoint, we're going to wrap security all around this and then have the testing and be part of this. Because again, we're trying to keep that flow going. Keep the flow. Okay, so let's start with a security user story. A security user story, this is a case study from Driver. They're a real organization, but it's a pseudonym. They didn't want to be identified. But nobody jumps straight to automation is the moral of the story for this. So with this, the first thing they did is they focus on what are some default security stories. This is my crawl phase, if you will. And with this, a security story can create that visibility into the backlog about how many things are in the backlog that I need to address from a security standpoint. Now, the components of this we've got our challenge. This explains in a business context, why is this important? Right? And this is written as a regular user story. As InfoSec, I need to blank so that I can blank. Great. I've outlined clear expectations about what I want from this team, right? And if you notice, there's no technical gobbledygook here, right? It's very clear and easy to understand. Now, I've also given this a priority. This priority level could be set perhaps by an external tool, right? That shows this code is exploitable. It's reachable today. Or maybe it's not. You can actually set this down and get to it in the next quarter. Whatever it is, we want to make sure that we're communicating effectively with our developers, because I'm going to let them write me love notes back and say, why is this just this one time, or do I need to think about scripting this across all my environments? So this is phase one. This is your crawl phase. But we want to be lazy, just like good developers, right? So how can we copy and paste these user stories, right? So start off with just simple copy paste. And based upon the specific risk assessment, we'll then inject those security requirements into individual teams. So again, I'm accelerating. So now I'm at the walk phase. Finally, this is the run phase. In this is a self-assessment questionnaire, much like that risk questionnaire, right? So within this, what kind of information are you storing, right? Because the old security joke is we don't secure sandwich recipes with the same authority as nuclear launch codes, right? But with this, based upon what kind of information you're storing, I can have a centralized database that's all connected to the CVEs, as an example. And within this, I tell them how to repair it. Again, I'm focused on the developers. How can I make it easy for them to understand what that security requirement is, how to fix it? Another great example of making it easy for developers, this comes from Cisco. This is in the context of using a linting tool. So a linting tool is basically like spell check for security. But basically, in this one, the developer is trying to use some attack site code. I don't think that's the right stuff to use. But behind the scenes, I'm giving them specific information about the vulnerabilities and details about it. So that way they can have that early feedback, that early coaching, so that way they can address this and we can help become more secure overall. And this is a real clear message. Security is committed to developers being secure and making a difference in your organization. So taking all three of these together, we can successfully integrate security into DevOps. But we have to be beholden to making sure those developers are successful. Because we win as a team, we lose as a team. When we have the ball, we're all on offense. When they have the ball, we're all on defense. We win as a team, we lose as a team. So I have some key takeaways for you. Number one, security is everyone's responsibility. Second, make it easy to do the right thing, right? Speak in their language and make sure everybody communicates effectively between the teams. And third, embed your security into the development tools. If you make them stop and get off the field, they're not going to do it. They're just going to stay on the field and keep playing. Keep that flow up, guys. All right, action plan for Monday. Accept that your role must change as InfoSec. Think about the bottlenecks you have between development and security. Where are those friction points? How can we culturally align and make sure that we're effectively communicating between the teams? Within the next 90 days, align between your development leaders on how security requirements will enter into the work stream. I'm a huge, huge fan of using stories to inject directly into the backlogs, because if it's not written down, it doesn't happen. We provide clear expectation about what's going to happen and why it's important. So write those security requirements as those agile stories. Within the next year, get some SLAs together, right? When I give you a high priority item, what's the expectation of when it's going to get done? And make sure you have those common rewards for the teams, right? When everyone's rewarded for the same outcomes, you're going to naturally get the desired behaviors out of this. At a minimum, pull out performance plans and make sure nobody's playing against each other. Otherwise, I'm just rewarded in ops for keeping that system up. I'm just going to hold that ball. You're welcome. Okay. This is some Gartner research here. So just to have that as facilitation, if you do have a Gartner license. I wish I'd had one years ago, really. That does conclude my presentation. This is just an HTML link for a mail to, so I promise there's no malicious site here. But don't take my word for it, that's fine. So we do have plenty of time for Q&A at this point, so totally welcome to open up the floor to anybody who'd like to ask this question. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have any suggestions for the kind of rewards that you would give to other developers or, I don't know, security champions?
Yeah, great question. So the question was, what kind of rewards would you give to the teams or InfoSec or the coaches even? You want to reward them for what your customers care about. Do customers care about how many CVEs you patched? No. But they care a lot about that cool new feature. How easy is it to order that new pair of shoes, as an example, right? So we want to make sure, what do your customers care about? So orient yourself on what your end customers are. You know, if you're on a nonprofit agency or government agency, you still have end customers, right? They may be internal agents, they may be internal tax assessors, things like that. That's what you focus on. Focus on your end customers, right? And security is a non-functional requirement, right? But as part of this, for example, you're going to get hit because, oh, your site went down. Oh, you disclosed all my data. That's bad, right? So customers value these as well, right? Value privacy and confidence. Does that address that for you? Great question, thank you. Additional questions, please. Yes, ma'am.
What do you think are the three most important aspects of training the security coaches? That's not an easy role if you haven't worked that much with developers.
Yeah, so the three most common things that security coaches should be trained up on was the correct question. You're going to have different levels of experience in different teams. You may have one that's very good at, let's say, database security. Another one that's really good at network security. So the first thing you're going to need to do is make sure everyone has a security 101 session, if you will. So whatever your security programs need to be to attain that basic level. Because you may have very experienced developers that don't know anything about network security, right? Or why having passwords in the clear is bad. So you have to figure that out. I'm sorry, there's no clear answer for that. But the important part for your security coaches is make sure you have a basic program that level sets with everyone with what the objectives are.
How do you establish their legitimacy for the developer team? Wouldn't they possibly be seen as kind of amateurs or, you know, stopping the flow?
Yeah, so the question was, how do you see them as amateur, the security coaches as amateurs?
How do you make sure that the people they're working with on the developer teams
Yes.
accept their input?
How do you...
What's their authority?
Their authority. How do you establish that they're coaches? Yeah, that they're coaches who should be listened to.
Oh, so I'm a developer and my coach is saying you must comply?
Well, or you must do it this way, and then the developer could say, why? Who are you to tell me this? You're just a database person.
Yeah, so ideally the coaches should be part of that team.
Okay.
So they have that authority within their own peer organization. Correct. Yeah, so you've got a group of 10 developers and one of them says, oh, I think I could be a security coach. I think security's kind of cool. And they go, great, go be our coach. But they're also the for lack of a better description, the union rep back to the security team to say, here's what I'm finding. You gave me all these requirements and they don't understand them. So how can we break through this barrier?
Okay.
Does that address that?
Yes, I think pushback is a big part of any kind of cultural change.
Absolutely, pushback is definitely a part of cultural change, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I guess kind of a follow-up on that. If a security coach is kind of too high up in the food chain, right? They understand more of the governance, the standards, you know, all the big decisions, right? But they're too far removed from the developer teams. Is there something that you would suggest to like bridge that gap?
Yeah, so the question was that what if the security coaches are too high up to actually have that interface with the developers? That's a poor choice of a security coach. You want somebody low and tactical, really close, right? Can you imagine a soccer or football game, right, where the coach is just way up in the owner's box? I think that's Jerry Jones's model. Sorry, Cowboys fans. Right? They're ineffective, right? You have to be really close to the players. You have to be close to the field so that way you can give them that immediate coaching and feedback.
So you think maybe like a senior or like a principal from the existing group, is that kind of what you're, because I think like all the questions, and that's kind of what I'm thinking too, is like,
Yeah.
Are you talking about hiring people from the outside who are specifically coaches, or kind of somebody internal to the existing team who says, you know what, I'll do all of the talking to security and then I'll figure out how we implement what they want us to do, and then as part of the existing team, I can then help everybody else. Is that kind of the...
Yeah, so the question was, am I hiring security coaches from the outside? Absolutely not. You want to find somebody that is on these individual squads that has an interest in security, right? So you're going to need to go in and promote yourself. So if you're a security rep, you walk into these developer team meetings and go, hey, I'm Jim. I'm this local security guy. I'm looking for somebody to help bridge the gap between security and your team. Who's interested? That's exactly who you're looking for. Yeah, absolutely. Great dialogue. Additional questions, comments? I'll talk about just about anything. Don't talk technical. I can talk this deep. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I keep asking.
Nobody else is. It's your time.
Okay. So going back to the rewards, so I'm thinking, okay, you're a developer who is also a security coach, and you have two big projects, right? And they're deliverables in the sense that once you finish the project, there's going to be a big woohoo, good job, guys, and like a pizza party or something. And then you have a big bug also in a different part of your application. And they're asking you to prioritize this. But of course, your PO, your project managers, everybody is saying like, no, our big feature, big new shiny feature takes priority. How can you, deal with that?
Yeah, so the question is, how do I get enough priority to get the security things done when there's going to be a conflict of interest with the feature release? The reality of it is nobody will remember the features you deliver if the system goes down, or if the data gets disclosed, or any other myriad of things. Within Gartner Security, we actually do have another concept that's called protection level agreements. And basically the concept is kind of a used car model, right? Somebody walks on the car lot and says, ooh, that looks shiny. Let me have that. And they'll go, that is $80,000. What do you got for $20,000 instead? That's the same concept with security. But within this, you have to establish, is it reachable? Then it should have priority, right? If it's not reachable, for example, this is many years ago, there was a vulnerability that only came through on a specific port address. And we were vulnerable, but we just decided to mitigate that with a firewall rule in the short term until we could patch that in the next quarter's release. So we were willing to accept that much risk in the meantime. You have to create cooperative protection level agreements with your stakeholders, right? And this is why the final slide on there was agree on what those SLAs will be. If it's high priority, if it's reachable, you have a commitment to address that immediately. Great question, thank you. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Question for you. Have you seen an effective manner of piquing security interest within developers by utilizing things like hackathons, capture the flag events, things of that nature to help get them engrossed in security? And then if so, how do you sell that to leadership to get it funded and actually facilitated?
Yeah, so the question is how do we get developers to be engaged, and how do you potentially secure funding to that as well? Somebody else had a really great talk on, what I think it was Tanya that actually had the, you have no security budget, start with this kind of stuff. There are some really cool tools out there for, sample hackathons where, you can go out there and play a game. I think it was Ice Cream Shop if I remember right off the top of my head. So those are really great activities. The challenge that I've seen historically is one of prioritization, right? Back to the young lady that said, ooh, that's going to take how much capacity away from my developers? That doesn't seem right. You know, I need all these features instead. So you have to have a conscious investment of time and tools. There's plenty of tools out there that are available for free. So that usually is not the constraint. Usually it's a constraint of feature release, quite honestly. And this is where we need to have the engagement of leadership to say, this is why this is important and why we're going to allocate budget and time for this. If you're using SAFE, for example, you have your IP session as a healing session, as an example. But you need to make sure you're allocating enough overhead for those training incidents, training sessions. Not the incident word, sorry. Does that address that for you?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir.
Just kind of a follow-up for that one. It's not so much a question, but what we did in the past is just do things that you don't need approval for. So things that are within your control, if it's a lunch and learn or a 2-hour thing, say, hey, look, we did this, had a great turnout, we'd like to expand it. So at least you have something to build.
Yeah, so the gentleman said, you know, if you can do lunch and learns, things that you have authority and control of, those are great opportunities. I would also, if you're not doing it already, go to your devs team meetings, right? Try to break down those barriers because they're going to feel more comfortable to approach you like, hey, I'm not quite sure, you know, versus, again, we can focus more on the shift left component by finding problems early versus the, you did what? You put what out there? How dare you? Right? We want them to approach us. We want them to understand, you know, their behaviors and how we can address and improve those. So at a minimum, go meet your developers and make sure that you have regular cadences and break through those with communities of practice as well. Additional comments, questions? All right. Well, it is 12:40. Thank you so much for having me. And y'all stay safe out there. Take care.